Greetings and welcome to the Nanalysis Webcast. It is now my pleasure to introduce your host, Mr. Sean Kratusky, founder and CEO.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. I founded the company 11 years ago, and we're positioned to be the global leader in MRI for industrial applications. I'm sure all of you know what MRI is, an MRI machine at a hospital, and hopefully some of you are thinking, what does he mean by for industrial applications? And I'll answer that question as I go through the presentation. So we are seeking safe harbor for forward-looking statements. So just some investment highlights before I get into the technology and the products and the customers. So very strong balance sheet, no need to raise money. We could go indefinitely with the current cash that we have. Of course, we do have some more aggressive plans to execute. So it's conceivable that in the future we would do a money raise, but we're not a technology company looking for money. We've been in business for 11 years and we're all cashed up. We're the global leader in our category, which is MRI for industrial applications. Our technology platform and our products are patent protected. And we're a fully vertically integrated company. So not only do we do the R&D, the product development, direct sales, channel sales, but we also do full-blown manufacturing in our facility, which is an important item that has to do with IP theft. So unless somebody knew exactly what we were doing in our proprietary manufacturing processes in Canada, they wouldn't be able to reverse engineer the technology. We're facing a huge market opportunity and our business is ready to scale now. So MRI machines consist of three different types of technologies that come together: large superconducting magnet systems, electronics, and software. And we basically miniaturized that, not to use on human beings, operated in hospitals and so on, but rather for industrial applications whereby somebody's trying to analyze a new drug that they're developing at Pfizer or Eli Lilly, or a mining company like Albemarle is trying to determine how much lithium is in a brine pool. And so the output isn't an image, but rather something like there's 5.5% lithium in this product, or there's 13.1% THC in this cannabis product. So it's an application of the same physical phenomena, but we've miniaturized it down to something that's like a toaster-sized device and nominally $50,000 product. So the approach of using MRI for industrial applications has been around a long time. And in this slide on the left, you see how they're configured. So it's the same superconducting magnets, the same electronics, and similar software that's in the MRI machines that are in hospitals, but the form factor is different. They're in specialized rooms. They require a gatekeeper. So our miniaturization initiative is analogous to the age of mainframe computers, where there used to be, these big computers in cooled rooms with a gatekeeper. You'd bring your punch cards to them, and 3 days later, maybe you got your compiled program. So it's analogous to when a personal computer showed up, and the miniaturization is allowing for new applications, portability, and we think is driving a huge growth in the market opportunity. Here's a look at some of the customers that we sell to. So we sell to the biggest companies in the world, as well as like a two-person little biotech startup. We sell to the biggest universities in the world, as well as, tiny little community colleges in Mississippi or rural India. We also sell to a lot of government labs. This is our view of the market opportunity. So first of all, the general space that we're in is scientific instrumentation. Some people prefer the term analytical instrumentation. Over $60 billion per year is spent on test and measuring equipment for various applications. The MRI part, that's not used in hospitals, but rather used in this type of test and measurement. Over $900 million per year is spent in that part of the pie. The miniaturized part of it is still small, but we think that it has an opportunity to grow to billions of dollars per year in the next 5 to 10 years. And it's based on two growth drivers, essentially. It's becoming standard equipment in every lab. So now that it's miniaturized, it can be everywhere. And then also new applications where like when I founded the company 11 years ago, I wouldn't have thought you could use these things on cargo ships to analyze bunker fuel that's going in expensive Rolls-Royce engines, for example. But new applications are also driving this growth. Here's a look at the competitive landscape. I won't get into the technology too much, but the distillation of it is that there's only 2 companies in the world that have succeeded at miniaturizing this technology. Us and our arch competitor called MicroCap, which is a small company based out of New Zealand. And then 3 other companies are trying in various forms or another to develop competing technologies, but so far they've failed. One of those companies has tried to purchase us several times, and our shareholders have rejected their offers. So very difficult to build a miniaturized MRI for these types of applications. We're all about the application of this approach. So on the left of this slide here is some examples of what the output of those large machines are. Very complicated, requires experts to interpret them, whereas we're about making the output simple. So for example, a customer called Albemarle has told us that the users of our equipment will be simple technicians, and they just want to see one number. They don't want to see a frequency spectrum or a chart. They just want to see % lithium. So we wrote a little app on top of the raw output and shows them that one number. In other cases, like in detection of illicit drugs in suspicious powders, so things like fentanyl or heroin, they just want to see red light, green light, or check mark or X, where check mark means there's fentanyl in the suspicious powder. So it's a big initiative for us, and we're developing some of the apps ourselves. It's their low-hanging fruit. In other cases, we're working with third-party partners, and it's also part of our M&A strategy as well, to acquire software companies that have this capability and can make it available on a software as a service basis. Here's a look at our historical revenue. We haven't produced our 2019 numbers yet, but they'll be coming out in a week or so. Probably sort of be flattish compared to 2018, and 2019 was really about sort of bending our knees and getting ready for our next leap up in growth. We're really excited about the growth, both organically and the recent acquisition that we just closed for 2020. Our products are manufactured and sold at gross margins of 70%, so highly profitable business on an intrinsic basis. That's one reason why I got involved in this, is I was told a long time ago when I started doing the opportunity investigation that lab instrumentation for industrial applications is a highly profitable business that doesn't tend to get commoditized. Our organic growth strategy can be encapsulated by saying we have a nice baseline business going that we're continuing to grow. That's basically based on selling our benchtop instruments into chemistry labs, in whether it's at a large pharma company or a food company or a petrochemical company. But then we're adding on new applications with partners, and in a lot of cases OEM partners. And the best example of that are 2 that we publicly announced, one with Bosch to analyze bunker fuel on cargo ships. There's over 50,000 cargo ships out there that require a better analysis of their bunker fuel for environmental and also engine damage reasons. And then oil refineries to optimize their facility based on the characteristics of the crude oil that's going in as a feedstock. So with those new applications, we kind of get a step up in growth, and then we continue on from the higher baseline. We also have an M&A strategy that we've started to execute. Essentially, there's 5 companies that we want to buy that I've been communicating with, so 5 specific companies. And that I've been communicating with for several years, and it amounts to putting together complementary pieces. It's not a roll-up by any stretch. It's putting together complementary pieces to become a bigger instrumentation company faster than if we could if we were doing organic growth alone. And that's the main reason why we went public. We didn't go public because we needed to do that to raise the money. We did that because it's part of our M&A philosophy to use our pubco currency, issue restricted shares, basically do a paper swap with these other entrepreneurs and work together side by side with them after we acquire their company to increase the value of that paper. We have an exciting product roadmap that includes higher-end products, lower-end products, accessories, all built on the same technology platform that's patent protected and designed in-house by us, and also adding software as a service recurring revenue model. It's sort of a freemium-based model where the basic processing is free, or at least comes included with the price of the instrument. And then if you want to do extra processing, you can pay on a per-use basis or on a subscription basis. As I mentioned, all of our manufacturing is done in Calgary, and we have the ability to scale to well over $50 million per year in revenue right in our current facility. We could double or triple that with incremental investment. And I want to emphasize it's full-blown proprietary manufacturing. It's not just final assembly. So we have an experienced and talented, energetic management team. The two co-founders with me are Dr. Greg McFeeters at the bottom left and Dr. Garrett Leskowitz towards the top on the right. Garrett, our product concept and the technology was Garrett's idea. The first 5 years of our business was an R&D project. And then over the years, we just added on extra management pieces as we needed them as we went from phase to phase in our business. In addition, we have a senior independent board of directors led by our chairman, Martin Buren, who came over with me about a year ago in conjunction with the RTO of the shell company that we used to go public. Very experienced M&A and investment banking guy who's kind of riding shotgun with me as like VP of M&A and corporate development. Werner Gardner is the chairman of our audit committee. He's a former CFO of a large NASDAQ-listed company, a very experienced chartered accountant and knowledgeable financial guy. We're very lucky to have him as our chairman of our audit committee. Michael Okinevsky is a world-renowned scientist in this area of technology. Steve Mazeros is our largest external shareholder. He's invested $3 million over the last 8-9 years and participated in every round of financing, and he's on our board. He's the largest residential home builder in southern Alberta and very a knowledgeable and experienced businessman. Here's a look at our cap table, which I believe is as of our recent publicly issued financials. It's still a representative cap table, so 61 million outstanding shares. Stock options issued to employees, and they were always issued at fair value. And warrants are mostly associated with the $6.5 million financing that we did last June, and those warrants are at 75% and expiring this June, actually. So no cheap paper out there in terms of options or warrants. And that's towards the end of the presentation. I just want to emphasize that we've been public for a year approximately. Before that, as a private co, all of our employees had opportunities and took advantage of it to become equity holders. So not just stock options, but actual shareholders in our company. Very talented, very well educated. Most of them are in our facility in Calgary, which this slide is representative of. But then we've also added 20 more people in our facility in Strasbourg that we just acquired. A company that's doing about 2.5 million euro a year, so that'll be pretty accretive in terms of like revenue multiples to our company when it shows up at the end of 2020. So really excited about our people. They're our best asset, and that's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions from anybody.
All right, first question, Sean. Let me skip over to it. How are you planning to integrate the European acquisition?
Excellent question. So the short answer is, and then I'll elaborate, is that it's already been integrated. So this is a company that I've been working with for years. The founder and I have been dining together for years, and by the time it took took us longer to close the acquisition with the lawyers than to have the new org chart done. So it's a full blend. They're not operating independently. Two of their people have leadership positions with us. If it weren't for COVID-19, we'd have two of our supervisors actually moving to Strasbourg and living there, and then conversely, two of their people would be moving to Calgary and living here. So the new org chart is all done, and the integration was done before the legal deal was closed by the lawyers, and the teams are working fantastically well together. They all speak English. Many of us, including myself, speak fluent French, so no issue there.
Follow-up question. What value do you perceive from this acquisition?
Right, so I've already talked about sort of the financial value in terms of it being accretive on a revenue multiple basis. On a technology platform basis, we were in the midst of a classic buy-build decision for our next generation electronics. So I think you'll remember on one of the slides I talked about how in these systems there's three basic buckets of technology that are required. One is the magnet system, which we're the best in the world at. Then the other is the electronics. We weren't the best in the world in the electronic part of these systems, but this company that we just acquired is. And then the third part is software, and they add that dimension as well. But we were in a buy-build decision in terms of either developing our own next generation electronics or acquiring theirs. And we were gonna use them as a supplier, but we just decided to buy their whole company, and now their core electronics platform is integrated in our new 100 megahertz product, and then it's going to proliferate down into our 60 megahertz product as well. They also add a lot of domain expertise, more on the imaging side of things. So there's tremendous opportunities to do actual imaging in industrial context, like imaging of eggs, imaging of batteries. And so not that I want to get too much in detail on the difference between kind of nuclear magnetic resonance and nuclear magnetic resonance for actually producing an image. But that delineation does exist, and it's well known in our industry, and they bring that dimension to us, which could get us into markets that are much bigger in size than the current niche that we're in right now. So,
okay, just expanding on that theme, can you explain or walk through a little bit in a bit more detail your merger and acquisition strategy?
Yeah, sure. So we, to some extent for negotiation reasons, we never get fixated on only one acquisition at a time. So right now we're looking at, and this is in the context of my previous statement of there's 5 specific companies that we want to buy, but they're staggered. So right now we're in talks with a company that's pure sales and distribution. Like all they've done for 20 years is sell scientific instruments, and they do some service of it, but no R&D, no manufacturing. The guy's an old Hewlett-Packard, like from the test and measurement side of Hewlett-Packard sales guy. He's done nothing but that in his life. They have offices in Calgary, which is just a coincidence, and also in Phoenix, which would become our American headquarters. Pretty good place if you consider costs and so on, as well as access to market. So that's a company that we're looking at, and then another company is a pure software play. So no hardware. It is within nuclear magnetic resonance and nuclear magnetic resonance for imaging, but it's pure software. And we're actually looking at a couple other software companies as well. We have one in mind that we want to pull the trigger on, but they don't know that. We're looking at several of these software companies. So that one of those two, either a software company or pure sales and distribution, is going to be a next acquisition. You can kind of think of them similar sizes as the one we just reported. So we're not at this point, we're not looking at acquisitions that are sort of $20 million in size. They're significantly smaller than that, and a little bit of cash, but mostly shares. And then there's other companies we're looking at as well, but we won't be pulling the trigger on them in the next 12 months. But they're, again, complementary types of companies in our space and in our industry. all like entrepreneur, sort of scientific, people led, people that they know their technology, they know their products, they know their customers really well, but they don't know how to raise money. They don't want to raise money. They're not trying to scale a business. They're stalled a little bit in terms of how they can scale. They're not real operational experts. Whereas we're complementary to that, right? So we have our financial infrastructure, our manufacturing infrastructure, our HR infrastructure, and so really complementary type acquisitions. Definitely not a roll up.
Perfect. We have some financial questions, so maybe I'll pivot there next. First of all, can you explain in a bit more detail the strength of the balance sheet and how you plan to weather this crisis?
Yeah. So, according to our recently released financials, we have, approximately $6 million in cash. We don't have any collateralized debt. We do have some debt that's in the form of interest-free loans from government agencies, but there's no security. And in fact, they've told us we can discontinue repayments of that debt because of COVID. So they're more of a grant. And so in other words, we have no debt that can cause us any problems. We're fully cashed up. If you look at our historical financials, we've proven that if we need to, if it's good for the business, we can manage to a profit. So we have many levers in our business right now, whereby like if some external macro circumstance hit me on the head tomorrow morning and said, Sean, you got to start generating like $3 million worth of EBITDA tomorrow morning, we could. It would require some operational shifts. But I guess the main point is we're a real business that's been involved for a while. We're not exposed to oil. We're not exposed to tourism. We're not exposed to those sorts of things. Purchase orders have continued to come in the door through this crisis. Now, of course, if it lasted another year, I would give a slightly different answer 12 months from now. But a 3 month issue where business slows down a little bit, but customers are still paying us and purchase orders are coming in, and we're still manufacturing instruments. So of course, we're practicing social distancing and doing all the right things. We have very skilled and prudent workforce. But the 2 to 3 month slowdown, even if there's a sort of COVID-2 in the fall, from a cash burn perspective, from an operational perspective, I don't see any issues at all.
I think we have time only for one more question, unfortunately. So last question. Can you explain a little bit more detail why 2019 revenues were flat-ish and what you're going to do to change that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had some operational challenges in 2019 that distracted us. I made some bad decisions in terms of hiring sales leadership that I had to deal with, and we recovered from that. We also were the targets of an acquisition effort that some of our shareholders were interested in, and so that embroiled us in several months of exclusive negotiations on selling our company. Eventually, our shareholders and our board and I united and terminated those discussions, but that was a big distraction. It was a large NASDAQ-listed company, by the way, that was trying to buy us. So, they had all our entire management team involved in the due diligence. So that was really a nightmare, to be honest. So we didn't really recover from that until the new year. So there's some other smaller reasons, but I guess those would be the two major reasons for our poor performance in 2019. There were some international customers that said they were seeing a little bit of a business slowdown, but mostly it was just an execution issue on our side. And fortunately, we kept investing heavily in our business, and that's why I say it was 2019 was like a year where we're bending our knees, and 2020 is going to be the year that we leap forward with growth and should show some pretty good growth. It is contingent on the COVID-19 crisis clearing up to some extent. But like I said, so far purchase orders have come in and product is getting shipped out and customers are paying us.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Sean. And if anybody needs any more information on Nanalysis or has any more questions, you can visit Nanalysis.com or phone me directly. I'm the IR manager here at Nanalysis. My name is Matt Sellers, and I can be reached at 587-436-1291 or matt.sellers@nanalysis.com. All right, thanks for your time. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time. Stay safe.
Thank you. This concludes today's webcast. You may disconnect your lines at this time. Thank you for your participation.